name is Emanuel Arruda. You can call me Manny. Let's just begin and get into it. I want to begin with thank you. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. It was a short one. No, I changed my welcome to thank you because I want to thank you, all of you that I met last night at dinner and got to connect with, because I didn't know really what you all did and how important it is to the world. I mean, I knew that what was missing in terms of in companies and people's lives between coaching and values to help companies get from where they are in that gap to where they need to be in terms of leadership. But I didn't really understand fully the tools, the processes, and more importantly, the heart that all of you bring to this industry that I didn't know existed. I built this business, it was two guys in a photocopier when we started, and I've just sort of been bootstrapping it along. I didn't realize that I could call on people like you for help. So thank you for doing what you're doing and for coming here to learn from each other and to grow. It's a remarkable thing, and as you hear my story, you'll figure out, man, how the hell did this guy do this by accident? It's kind of amazing. Okay, so let's begin. Emanuel Arruda, League Financial Partners. And happy to say that this year we hit the Profit 200, Canada's, I think we're 13th in Canada of Canada's fastest growing companies, and all because of our values. And I'm going to talk really, really quick for you so that we can have enough time to get into questions. And there's just this is basically a preview of my longer thing that I'll be doing this afternoon if you want to join me there. So the question for today is $0 to $1 billion in 6 years. How did we do that? And the answer is by turning core values into capital value, quite literally. So my story begins with an ending. There's a poet by a Sufi poet named Rumi who talks about spirituality being like a jewel buried under a house. And in order to get that jewel so that you can then build a bigger, better house, you have to raise the house to the ground and dig everything up. And essentially that's what I did in my life in 2003. In 2003, I had not seen my wife in 2 years. She was a professional actress, and every year that I knew her for the previous 10 years, she was away for 6 to 10 months. And I thought, this is kind of silly. I didn't want to stop her from her dreams. She didn't want me to stop me from mine. So we decided, let's just split up. We won't tell our families. We won't get anyone involved, and we'll just go from there. So we decided to sell our house, and in 2 days, I just put signs up around the neighborhood, sold everything I owned in 2 days. It wasn't like a lawn sale with junk from the garage. This was like my best stuff, right? Big screen TV, leather couch, all that kind of thing. And I literally fought for every nickel on my front lawn. I remember a book that I paid $75 for that I was selling for $1, and this guy offered me 75 cents. And I go, get the hell off my lawn. And he literally walked away, and he took about 15 steps, and he went, what am I doing? And he came back and gave me that extra quarter. And I was like, yes, because I got no plan, right? I need every corner I can get. And in that 2 days, I learned a couple of important lessons. The first one is that the things you own end up owning you. I can't tell you how free I was to be able to go in any direction I wanted, standing on my own 2 feet with my clothes on my back, and I literally got my life down to 6 of those Rubbermaid buckets, 3 to store and 3 to carry. And the second lesson that I learned is nothing in this world is worth what you paid for it, no matter what you paid for it. And that was the beginning of the shedding of any materialism on my part. So there's our 2 checks that we were going to split up and say goodbye from. It was kind of interesting because here we are, we've never even raised our voices at each other, and here we are getting a divorce, kind of a strange situation. So I said to her, well, why don't you come with me for one last road trip back to LA. I was living with some friends in LA at the time, and we'll say goodbye from there. She thought that was a good idea. And over that trip, we got to know each other again. I'm like, oh, that's why I married you. You're pretty nice. And she's like, yeah, you too. And so by the time we got to Las Vegas, I think it was, I thought, why don't we do this? Why don't we both drop our careers and let's stay together? We made a lot of money off that house and the house before by accident because we could only afford crappy houses and we'd fix them and flip them. This is before, I don't know if you have it here, but there's all those TV shows where you take these ugly houses and make money. So she said, well, that's a good idea. Couldn't believe she was going for this. I'm like, all right. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't want to live through 40 days of renovation hell with no clean place to sit down and you've torn everything out and you're doing your dishes and everything else in the bathtub. So why don't we buy a motorhome? Then we can live wherever we are. We can have a clean place to live in our driveway and move from wherever we are. She thought, that's a good idea. I'm like, I can't believe she's falling for this. Okay. So we ended up buying this 1976 Vogue RV. Green shag, wood paneling, bar in the back, blender on the countertop for margaritas. Like, it was awesome. And 40 miles later, it broke down. So we left it at this place where we purchased it in Medicine Hat, Alberta, and came back. And by the time we came back, it was November in Medicine Hat, Alberta in Canada, and it was 40 degrees below zero. That's Celsius. And a blizzard with lightning. Never seen anything before in my life. And the guy on the radio was like, nobody should be out today. I'm like, F it, I got to get to the border fast. I got to get down south where it's sunny. And we got to the border, and they're like, you don't own a house? I'm like, no, I sold it. You don't have a job? Well, no, I got money in the bank from the house. They're like, oh, F off. They wouldn't let me cross the border. I'm like, hey, I'm Canadian. I'm not Mexican. We're going to come back, you know. And so we're like, what now? And I don't know, do you have Walmart here? No? Okay, well, Walmart's this big chain store. And Walmart basically lets people with RVs become their free security if you can stay in their parking lots overnight if you want. So I'm like, man, I don't want to live in a Walmart parking lot in the middle of the winter. This is not a good plan. So Christine says to me, well, let's drive to Vancouver, the west side of Canada. It rains there in the winter. I'm from Toronto, where it's always cold and snowy. So I couldn't even imagine this, but okay, let's go. We got to Vancouver and found out there's a place even warmer in Canada called Victoria. Okay, well, let's go. So I don't know where the rest of the scripture is. So we headed for Vancouver, and there's the sign. It says Hope. That's the name of a city in Vancouver. Pretty amazing. It was like all of just following the omens. If you've read The Alchemist, you know what I'm talking about. And by the time we got to Vancouver, it was kind of an interesting situation. That's the inside of our house. I lived in that RV for 2 years, 2.5 years with no paycheck. And when we got to Victoria, I decided, well, I'm going to look for a man who's a real estate investor himself, a realtor's investor himself, so we can speak the same language and we can sort of partner up and try to find some of these houses. So I met this guy named Alan. Alan was 63 at the time, and he told me he was the real estate king, basically. So we're having lunch. And then I told him about me. I owned an advertising company for 10 years, and suddenly he got all excited. He's talking opportunity, syndication. And syndication is when you take a great big investment and you break it up so individuals can put as much as they want and own a proportionate share of it. I'm like, well, that sounds really good, but you can't explain it to me very well, so good luck raising any money without me. Because I'm not going to help anybody take some little blue-haired old lady's life savings. So unless you can show me you have a vested interest, we'll have a vested interest in increasing the value of the investment for these people, I'm not interested. And he literally had no plan. So I drove away. 4 days later, his partner, who's now my partner, Adam Gant, came and found me and came up with what's now known as the league guarantee, where we take no ownership, no cash flow up front in these properties that we put together, and instead we earn 20% of the increase in value we create. So our incentives are in line, our interests are in line with our investors. I'm like, all right, this guy's putting his money where his mouth is. I can't see my next slide, so I have to move forward just to see what I'm talking about next. Okay, not yet. So immediately got to work. I don't know about you, but I don't really trust salespeople. Now, up until this point in my life, I need to explain to you, between 2001 and 2003, I used to say suffered, but now I would say I've been blessed with some really great betrayals from my business partner, my former business partner, my biggest client, pastor of my church, and even my family. It was a devastating, devastating time in my life that still gives me a little bit of weepiness when I think about it. So I was pretty much a mess, irritable bowel syndrome, couldn't eat anything. It was a disaster. So at this point, once I decided to partner with these three guys, I didn't want anybody, some salesman, making promises I couldn't keep or didn't know about, twisting somebody's arm to invest more than they should or sooner than they would feel comfortable. So instead, I collected all the information I could and wrote the Blue Book of Real Estate Syndication. And I put very, very verbose ads in the newspaper. Normally what people do will put little ads and say, call us for more information, and you'll get the salesperson on the phone who will try to talk you into being interested, even you don't know what it is. We did the opposite. I tried to do a filter rather than a dragnet. So we had very verbose ads that said exactly what we were, and at the end it said, call for your Blue Book. And then people would phone and say, well, tell me about this investment. I'm like, no, we don't do that. We don't have salespeople here. What? So now no resistance. What do you mean you don't have salespeople? Well, we have this book. I'll send it to you. Read it. If you're interested, call me back. We'll talk about investment. If not, send it back in the other envelope. Okay? And it worked. And there's also some various other kind of filtering processes that we did. So everything seemed to be going well. We're now starting to raise money. It took us almost a year to close that first little $4 million shopping center. It was a little strip mall, ugly little mall, already cash flowed well, so we knew the investor would be happy, but had plenty of room to increase it and make it better. Now, I don't know what your experience in life has been, but unfortunately mine has been that every man I ever met said he was honest, but they all seem to have a different definition of honesty. Anyone else have that experience? Yeah. So at that point, my two partners seemed to be doing what they said they were going to do, but I just couldn't put myself in that position that I've been before in my life where, these people that are closest to me betray me. So I literally disappeared into the woods. I think it was 40 days. And I had hair down to here. Oh, there's a video I'll show you guys later if you come in the afternoon with a big beard. That's another story. And I fought I searched my soul. And it was the hardest thing I'd ever had to write. And I figured out, okay, what must I absolutely have from this business, this partnership, this thing that we're doing in order to stay? And what will I absolutely not stand for, and I'm out? And I wrote what's called our credo, which is on your chairs right now. So our credo, the most important one is we believe in, number one, we believe in the primacy of the golden rule, and will adhere to it in all our pursuits. In all our intentions and activities, we will espouse this tenet. We will do for others as we would have them do for us. That's the first thing, alignment. And there's a couple other ones in here that I love, like everyone has equal value, even if they don't have equal wealth. And number 12 is the purpose of our company now. We believe that with each investment we initiate and each new member partner, we help to achieve intergenerational wealth. We add strength to our fabric of our free society. I'll talk about that in a minute. So I came back with the credo and said, all right, boys, this is what I've been doing. First of all, I also wanted to see if they were working while I was away, because if they weren't, I'm out. Right? But they were. Right, one of them was anyway, Adam was. And I said, these are the rules we said we're going to play by, isn't it? Oh, yes, Manny, absolutely, absolutely. This is great. And outside these boundaries, we do not go. Is that correct? Absolutely, absolutely. I'm like, great, sign it. They're like, what? Sign it. Why? Because we're going to put it in our blue book, we're going to put it on our website, and we're going to hang our butts out there like a couple of piñatas so anybody could take a swing at us if they see us saying one thing and doing another. Because we all know it's a lot easier to see that than wait for the dust to settle and the lawyers to take off with all the money, right? And so Adam was like, where's my pen? I'll sign it right now. He was excited. And Alan was like, whoa, let me read that again. And me and Adam looked at each other like, what, dude? This is basic ethics, right? And that was the beginning of the end. Our core values was the place where we started to make that first decision. Plus, Alan was 63. I was 33 at the time. Adam was 23 at the time. And so the idea of the league integrity guarantee, where we take no money up front and wait till the end to earn our share, really did not work for Alan. Alan was looking for money now, where we were young enough to wait for money later. So we continued on. Adam and I continued on with the properties. Alan left, and we named the company League. And the League meaning that it's a league of like-minded people. It's also a unit of measurement, so it's kind of an interesting word. So our core values is quite literally how we operate our business. That's been, 7 years now? And every single meeting, from the very first day, we always begin by reading our core values, our credo round robin before we begin. It reminds us who we are, what we're here to do, why we do it, and more importantly, why we do not do what we don't do. And you'll see from the way that it was written, it says we believe. Great. A lot of mission statements say we believe, but what about a we shall? What are you going to do about what you believe? And every one of ours has that in it. Okay. So then, again, still fear wanting to make sure that nobody's going to screw this up, because our core purpose is to create intergenerational wealth. What I did now is, I was imagining one day, 100 years in the future, when Adam and I are either dust in the ground or, heads in a jar somewhere, and now there's this new president standing at the boardroom table saying, we're going to get in a small arms manufacturer. That's where the money is. I wanted everybody around that table to be able to point to our credo on the wall, our crest, our coat of arms, and say, that thing says we don't do that. This literally took me 2 years to get approved by the Heraldic Authority of Canada, and every one of the symbols on our coat of arms represents a tenet of our credo. So, for instance, the lion has to do with courage and strength. The ox, it's not a bull. They're talking about bull markets. What are bulls good for? One thing, right? That's it, screwing you. An ox, you can actually put to work. So the ox has to do with hard work. You've got the land underneath having to do with real estate, the shield having to do with the strength and security, the two shields inside having to do with the two forms of protection that we provide our member partners, which is positive interdependence, the golden rule, and member partnership, which again I'll talk about this afternoon. In the middle there's the sextant, the navigator's tool for mapping, and on top is the beacon, which used to be back in the old days, if you're having some guests come over to your house, you'd light a huge fire so they can find your house. So it's about the light of knowledge and attracting people to it. So we begin business. What happens next? Our success strategies. The first thing we did right from the beginning was to give value in advance by providing the Blue Book of Real Estate Syndication so that people could educate themselves. It's literally in it. It's why real estate, why syndication, why group investments, and then why us. And it talks about our values. The second thing is the League Integrity Guarantee, where, again, one of our tenants says that we don't prosper until you do first. So give value in advance. Second one is partner with only the best of the best. We were smart, even though it's very expensive. It's definitely worth it. We just took that risk. And we have 3 different auditors. We have so many investments now going that we couldn't just use one audit team. So we have KPMG, Deloitte, and PricewaterhouseCoopers. We also use the best lawyers, accountants, analysts, tax experts. And of course, now with all of that we have, and especially with our values, it's amazing. It's not amazing, it's incredible. I don't know how to explain it. I'm so happy that we attract the best of the best executives and staff with us as well. My goal is in the next 12 months is to be known as Canada's best place to work. And we literally have executives, some of them who are just like on the verge of retirement from the United States or wherever, who are like, where have you been all my life? This is the kind of business I've wanted to focus my efforts on. These are people who run massive public companies, massive real estate investment trusts, and now are working for us because of our values. It is a distinguishing point. The other thing is, there are a few people, we've made some mishires, who gave lip service to it. And now we have sort of a grid, I think I may show you a little bit here later, on how we choose people. But that has been our distinguishing point. Oh, I gotta hurry, 30 minutes. Is that countdown clock? Yes, oh, so I only went 15, good, okay, good. Okay, and the last one is provide purpose, not just product.